Hi, I'm Ted Williams. Welcome to the Professors The After Show. Our conversation continues about Illinois' budgetary and political crisis. Now, Dr. Dima, you were talking about during our break whether taxing services in Illinois would be a good idea and whether that be a progressive tax or a regressive tax. What were you saying? Why don't you explain that briefly?
Yeah, I was saying that if you tax services and people don't want to be heavily taxed because they believe they have a heavier tax burden than they should, then they will not participate or seek those services, and that is going to harm the businesses.
Yeah.
And I don't know how progressive service taxes could be.
Well, you could leave business to business out of it. You could even leave that out of it and just individual services.
Yeah.
And that'll be much more progressive.
But Connie, wouldn't that then hit
It's
people,
neither
individual services
progressive nor
like the
regressive.
lawyer, a hairdresser, people who are, I mean, I would imagine that would have a negative effect on the economy as well.
I mean, poor people, they pay a tax for their clothing, for their food. Those with more incomes that are using these financial services, those type of things.
Not food.
Not food.
Please.
Okay.
I helped to write those bills.
Thank you.
Not
Thank you.
food,
Okay.
thank you.
Gotcha.
But
But we can't ignore, I mean, the sales tax is just antiquated. We can't ignore 60% of the economic activity in Illinois is going untaxed.
No, you're right, but
I
Nick makes a
if we are
point, no
going
taxes,
to solve the
right?
problem,
Yeah, I
we
think low
should.
taxes is the way to go.
Yeah.
I see the problem.
What tax?
Lower taxes.
Lower
he says.
taxes, not increasing taxes.
Illinois has a revenue problem. How
Listen, in 1992, 1991, they figured out by the year 2000 that the interest on the national debt would equal the GDP. All of a sudden, 1999 comes around, we have the biggest surplus in the history of this country. We are in down economic times. I think the last thing you want to do is putting more taxes in place that'll probably end up staying there and harming the economy. What we need to do is sustain what we have right now. Eventually, things will get better. And you know what? The dust is starting to settle, and they will get better.
So
We can do this
in the
show
meantime,
5 years
right?
from now, and we won't probably be
So lower
in this
taxes-
depression or recession that we're in.
Help me to
very
understand
optimistic.
this. Lower taxes means
Well, but in the
that
meantime, what do we do?
Yeah.
Right?
the government
Sustain.
is going to take in less revenue. How are you going to make up for that? I don't understand this.
In 1991, I gave you the example, it happened. And I'm very optimistic
How
about
did
the
it
U.S.
happen?
economy. There was growth, and if you stifle growth by taxing more, you're going to protract the amount of time that this recession will last, which will make things actually worse at the end.
So if you anticipate growth and it doesn't come and you have lower taxes, what do you have?
in the history of this country, one hasn't growth come. It's a matter of time. What you want to do is contract the time that it takes for repair, not make it bigger, longer.
This sounds like a conservative economic arrangement that got us into
it'll
trouble.
just come. If we
Right?
believe, it'll come.
It's it's my opinion, and I think it will come. And it has come. The Great Depression, it came. It took a long time, but it
well,
came.
it's not
took
just your
government
opinion, it's-
action and government policies.
Well,
That might have helped.
It took a war, that's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is.
The war
so
helped.
maybe we
That's
should
And
for
start a
sure.
the
war,
government-
right? Well, actually, we already have 2 wars. We're still
I just don't think
technically fighting.
taxes are taxing more is going to do
Well,
it.
honestly, almost half the country agrees with Nick on this because if you look at the recent election results, we're pretty evenly divided between red and blue on
Ted,
these
all I care is you
philosophies.
agree with me. Do you agree?
Somewhat. Somewhat. Actually, I do. No, I mean, I do. I worry about what happens then when, once again, like services. I mean, I've been in entrepreneurship myself, and many of the things that I've done have been service-based, and God knows I don't want the government trying to tax me more heavily because it does then impact the bottom line. And so I hear what you're saying, Connie. I
But
agree
we've
with
got
you.
a
We gotta-
low income tax, and then we're
I
not
know.
taxing services. What are we going to do? I mean, we can't sustain this long term.
Well, you
as
mentioned some-
demonstrated by the budget crisis
You
we're in
mentioned
now.
some other ideas earlier. You mentioned the idea of getting our borrowed money cheaper through, getting
That's
our
not going to
credit-
close the gap.
Right, but
How are you coming up with $85 billion?
well, okay, maybe we'll get to 85. Can I start with 5 and then give you 5 and then we just kind of.
Okay, it's a drop in the bucket.
No,
We're
seriously.
going to have to think about expanding our tax base.
Does anybody at this table really think that expanding gambling is going to bring us all that
No.
much money?
it's going to produce more costs.
Oh, you would be surprised how many people see it as a
Oh,
panacea.
no, I'm not.
Haven't you heard that?
Yeah, I absolutely
yeah.
have, and I
But
think it
that is-
honestly is an irresponsible
Gambling is a tax.
solution.
It's a tax on the poor people
It is.
who
It's
are
regressive.
unable to
It is.
calculate the
Absolutely
odds
It's absolutely
of
regressive.
winning. You know, so I
Not
don't.
just poor people, people who just simply do it. They're not necessarily poor.
Well,
I know some rich people who can't calculate odds either.
But I think you're right. But I think it's a good point. But it's a very bad precedent to balance the budget off the backs of our losers in society, basically. Those who aren't making any money in gambling. So I'm not for it.
The concept there is that these people are subjecting themselves to
it's
that
voluntary.
force.
Yeah.
So it's a voluntary sort of tax.
I got an idea. User fees. Let's start charging for different services in the city that we don't charge for. For instance, I mean, not that I'm necessarily for this, but when I lived in New Jersey, they charge for use of public beaches, right? At different beaches
No,
there.
that's a use tax.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
not
user tax.
service
Yes. No, it's a user tax.
User fee.
It's a
And
use
so,
tax.
yeah. The point is that so are there ways that we can generate revenue that way?
We just have to broaden where our revenue is
Yeah.
coming from. We're too dependent on too few sources.
Okay, we're out of time again. I'm sorry. Thank you guys.
Don't
Thanks for
you?
joining.
If you have a
do.
lower rate on
I
a
do.
broader base,
I
you
do.
bring in the same amount of money. That's what I
Thank you.
expected you to say, but you didn't.
I was trying to get
Thanks
to it.
for joining us. As you see, the conversation just keeps on going. I'm Ted Williams. Join us every Sunday morning at 10:30 on WYCC PBS Chicago for The Professors. We'll see you then.